представити.
Biażut.
The liqueurs of culture.
A to...
Zdobywca Oscara za film One Day in September, Kevin Macdonald przyjechał do Krakowa ze swoją najnowszą produkcją. Uroczysta premiera Marleya otworzyła 52. krakowski festiwal filmowy.
Kevin, I would like to welcome you at Krakow Film Festival. We're very honored to have you here.
Very nice to be here.
Your film Marley, it basically takes you on an extraordinary journey to whom Bob Marley really was. And what I found incredible about your film is basically you deal with an icon and a commodified figure, but at the same time you show his human face and his flaws. So what was the reaction of the family and Jamaican people to it?
Well, I think one of the reasons the family got behind this film and allowed it to be made was because they wanted to make the same kind of film as I did. They wanted to make a more intimate, personal and rounded portrait of their father. And partly that's because they didn't know him very well themselves. They were very young when he died, and there were 11 children, and the eldest I think was 14 when Bob died. And also even when he was alive, they didn't spend much time with him. So for them it was about wanting to discover him. So when I've then showed the film to them, it's been various different members of the family. It's been very moving actually. They've been in tears. They've been really touched by it, and it's been a very, I think, a wholly positive response from my perspective. And so even in Jamaica, you know, I was very nervous about what people in Jamaica would think of it. We showed it in a big public screening in the park in the centre of Kingston, 10,000 people, 5 different screens set up around the park, and I was incredibly nervous because I thought, you know, I'm here, I'm an outsider, a white boy from Scotland making this movie about their greatest icon, the greatest cultural figure in Jamaica. And they were very generous about it. They seemed to love it. I had lots of people coming up to me afterwards and saying, where can I buy the DVD? So that's always a good sign.
Are you a bigger fan of Bob Marley now after you made this film?
I am in a way a bigger fan because I think I was a bit cynical about him beforehand because he's so commodified, as the word that you used, that he has been used to sell soft drinks. He's been used to, you know, every bar, every restaurant you go into, you hear his music playing. So it's become a little bit like white noise. And I wanted to get rid of that white noise and let people hear the music again in a fresh way. And that's really the aim of any film about an artist, I suppose, is to make you reflect on the art in a deeper way after you've watched the documentary.
You also made a film with Mick Jagger, so I'm wondering, is it your liking for music that drives you to making such films, or is it your liking for the icons?
I think it's interest in those people and what's really behind the surface with them. I think it's the same when I made a film about Idi Amin, The Last King of Scotland. It's really about saying who's the human being behind the cliches, behind the myth, behind the legend. And with Mick that was very similar. Unfortunately though with that film it was taken away from me in the cutting room by his company and they recut it. So it didn't end up being quite the film that I wanted it to be. But it was, I suppose, you know, to be totally honest, you don't make decisions, I don't make decisions about what film I'm going to always do for intellectual reasons. Sometimes it's because you think it'll be fun. And I thought hanging out with Mick Jagger for a few months with a camera, travelling the world with him, experiencing his life would be a lot of fun, and it was.
Your documentary films are spectacles. You've got incredible budgets, they're really well constructed, and I'm wondering, is there any room for spontaneity in your documentary films?
Yes, I mean I think that the nature of most of the films I make are built around talking heads, not always, but a lot of them built around talking heads, and I think talking heads are spontaneous by their very nature, because unless you've got an actor saying the lines, the person in front of the camera is responding in the moment, and you can read so much of what is interesting about an individual, about a person, is not what they say, it's the small movements they make, you're guessing whether or not you trust them in what they're saying or whether you distrust them. You're making judgments all the time, as we all do about anybody we meet. What is this person up to? What are they like? Are they nice? Are they not nice? Are they crooked? And to me that is the spontaneity. I mean there are things in my film which are more obviously spontaneous, like when I give a Walkman with some headphones to somebody and get them to listen to that and respond in front of the camera to what they're listening to. Yeah. So yes, I think there's spontaneity. It's just not the spontaneity of cinema verite.
You only made Mali right now, and you're already working on a fiction film. Are you more of a documentary filmmaker? Are you more fiction filmmaker? And how do you do it? You know, how do you shift from one genre to the other?
Well, as long as you don't tell my producers, I'll tell you that I'm actually much more comfortable making documentaries, and I think that's my natural calling. I love making documentaries. I'm interested in people. I'm interested in asking questions. I'm curious. Fiction films, I started making because I thought, oh, that would be interesting to try. And then I grew to find that there's so much, it's technically so much more complex and rich. There's a lot more creativity in that side of it, in the craft side of it, which I really enjoy and appreciate. And I don't see why you can't have a career that straddles both worlds. I mean, not many people do that, but I don't know why that is. I mean, Kieslowski, we were talking about earlier, obviously made a lot of documentaries and then changed to making drama. And that happens quite a lot. People start their careers making documentaries and then go into drama. When they do drama, they then don't make any more documentaries. But I think you lose something by not constantly getting back in touch with real life, real people, dealing with smaller budgets, dealing with things with a crew of just 3 of you rather than a crew of 100.
You obviously like challenges. From what I read, you're making a film right now about teenagers? I'm
making a film about it's totally different than anything I've ever done. The adult parts in it are, there's 3 or 4 adults and none of them are in for more than 2 days. So everybody is really under the age of 18 and that's going to be fun. It's a very dark teenage love story called How I Live Now. Okay, well hopefully we're going to get it on festival next year. That would be good. Your first documentary that you made was about your grandfather, he was quite well known in Great Britain as a filmmaker. And, did he inspire you to become a filmmaker? No, not directly. He was Hungarian who ended up in Germany before the war and working at UFA, the famous film studios there. And he was writing films for people like, with people like Billy Wilder, for people like Robert Siodmak and Max Offals, some of the great directors of that period. And then because of the rise of Hitler, he was Jewish, he was forced to leave, and he went to France, and then he came to England. And I knew him when he was a very old man, and I loved him, and he was very inspiring to talk to. But I never wanted to go into film. I wanted to be a journalist, really, when I was younger. And I guess that's why I went into documentary. But The Guardian wouldn't have you. Yeah, they wouldn't have me. So I ended up making documentaries, which is a kind of journalism, and I think the inspiration, actually, fun enough, of my grandfather was that I wrote a book about him, and then made a documentary about him. And through making that film and writing that book, I learned a lot about cinema, because I had to do a lot of research. And that really spawned my love for cinema. So indirectly, yes, he did inspire me to go into film. You're you're a well-established filmmaker now, but at the beginning of your career, do you remember how you dealt with rejection? And was it hard? Yeah, it's always very hard. I think you get very angry sometimes when this is a great idea, why won't they take it? And I think that, you spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of emotional effort putting together treatments, putting together scripts or ideas, and having them thrown back at you. I think these days it's rather easier in a way to be a filmmaker because the equipment is so much more affordable. You can have a great quality camera, recording equipment very cheaply, so you can make your own films. So I think that would be my advice to any young filmmaker, is don't sit around waiting for someone to say you're great and here's the money to make your film. I would say, just go out there and make things. And when you're a student or when you're young and starting out, that's the time to try things out and to be extreme, be radical, because you probably won't be allowed to be so radical later on when somebody's investing real money in your film. With the producer on your back, sure. Kevin, thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Well, it's a real pleasure. I'm enjoying myself. Thank you. Thank you.